right, Steve. The downside, though, they couldn't run the ball. Couldn't run the ball until about 10 minutes left in the game. Mayan Williams, of course, left the game. That has a lot to do with it. But what do you make of that for a second consecutive week?
Yeah, I think Iowa had a good plan, and obviously Penn State had a good plan to say, no, you're not going to establish the run. If you're going to throw the ball over the top on us, then so be it. But yeah, Ohio State has really struggled running the football the last 2 weeks, and it shouldn't be like that. And I think it's just a number situation that they're just being outnumbered in the box, and they've got to do something to get people out of the box. They tried to throw those screens to get people to leave the box to go outside, and they didn't block the screens worth of crap. I think Fleming struggled on one of the blocks and maybe Stover on a couple of the blocks, but the design on some of these plays just hasn't been what it needs to be. And I don't know. I think they're back to the drawing board again. And we said it, I may have said it last week, that the threat of the quarterback run isn't there, although he did run it a few times in this game and even had an 11-yard run, which is almost unprecedented. I was in the parking lot and before the game with a couple of guys from my hometown, and the one guy says to his buddy, he goes, over under on Stroud touchdown runs in this game, and the obvious answer is a half, 0 or 1, and he bet the guy that he would have one touchdown, and it was. They had the ball at the 1 yard line. You thought, well, maybe he'll take the quarterback sneak and try and score himself. And then he said over under on Stroud rushing yards. And he was like 15, something like, well, he had 11 on one play and ended up right around, I don't know, maybe 8, 9, I think, net or whatever for the game. But, it just, if you just added that dimension, what would it mean? I don't know. It might help things out a little bit, but they don't want to get him banged up. It's certainly not going to run him against Northwestern, Indiana, and probably not Maryland. So it might be a while till might be until his last 3-4 games as a Buckeye before they unveil that.
Kevin,
I don't know if I have anything to add there. It's the running game, certainly, you sat there and you saw a running game that worked very well earlier in the season, and then they go against some teams that are pretty stout against the run, and they just can't seem to do much. I think one of the big things that we took out of the Ryan Day presser yesterday was where there were some talks about Ohio State's tendencies and running always out of the pistol or whatever, and I think that Ryan Day was a little incredulous at some points about where things were. Well, we had, out of the pistol. I mean, we ran 5 times and we were successful. We were successful on 4 of them. And, I think that we're going to go into a game with Northwestern where we're going to see what the line is able to do, because it's not necessarily going to be a case of Trevion Henderson or Mayan Williams out there. I think that both of them are going to get hall passes for that game. I think it's going to be Dallin Hayden and Chip Trainum that are going to be doing a lot of things. And I think that if the weather in Evanston is blustery in terms of windy and rainy and everything else, that maybe Ohio State does put a little bit more emphasis on the ground game and getting some of these things fixed over these next 3 games before you have to sit there and get into a knuckle buster against Michigan, a team that's going to prove once again that it is stout against the run. Michigan's come into this game in previous years pretty solid against the run, and Ohio State's been able to solve that riddle. They couldn't solve it last year, and that, I think really is going to be a huge difference. I mean, Ohio State has put together 8 quarters of where its run offense has not been all that great. So you got to work on it, and they're not going to be able to do it with their 1 or 1A backs this week, in my opinion. So, this is I guarantee you that Justin Fry and Kevin Wilson have been working extra hard with the line in terms of trying to get some things there, because if we're being honest and you go back and watch the tape, the interior line didn't have a great game against Penn State. Matt Jones had his struggles. Donovan Jackson had a couple struggles. Unfortunately, Luke Whippler kind of just gets wrapped up in that. So it's just the interior line. So they've got to figure something out, because it's going to be it's going to matter soon. It's not going to matter on Saturday, but it's going to matter soon. And you can't just sit there and flip a switch and suddenly have it fixed. It's something that is a work in progress.
Yeah, Ryan Day was pushing back at the idea that running every time under center and running every time in the pistol was tipping their hand and causing issues with the run game. And I think there were times where Penn State was absolutely convinced that Ohio State was running the ball, and they were correct. But when you look at the fact that of the 46 times they were in shotgun, they ran the ball 7 times. 6 of those times they averaged less than 2 yards a carry. The last time was the 41-yarder by Travion Henderson. So they weren't tipping the runs in the shotgun, and they couldn't run there either. So I think the issues are more about the offensive line and finding the right running plays rather than the fact that they're tipping stuff. Because really 4 or 5 runs out of the pistol, that's really not enough to base a tendency off of. Running under center every time is something that they've done. They run more out of from under center than they throw by far, and that's something that they had a tendency of doing last year. So I think people see it and they expect it to happen this year, and when it does, then people jump on it. Other times, like out of the pistol, they threw the play action to Julian Fleming last week or the week before against Iowa. So you break those tendencies at the right time. They didn't do that in this game, this past game, and you wait to do it maybe for Michigan. But they were successful running out of the pistol, but they weren't really successful running anywhere else. And I think that's the larger concern. 2 weeks in a row now, under 100 yards rushing. That doesn't happen at Ohio State. Not 2 weeks in a row, and you can't just boom flip the switch back on. And I said this before, I don't care what happens in the next 3 weeks. It won't tell me anything about what they're going to do against Michigan running the ball. They can average 300 yards a game the next 3 weeks. It doesn't mean anything because we saw them running the ball very well coming into the Iowa game, and we've seen what's happened since. So they need to fix that because at this point, if other teams can stop it and make Ohio State one-dimensional, yeah, Ohio State has been able to throw the ball, but like Ryan Day has shown, like he will remain. I need to be balanced, and at some point, like you look at the Utah game, I think they threw balance out the window. It's like we got to go win this game, and they did. And I think he might have to that sort of come to Jesus moment with Michigan as well, where it's like, you know what, we're just gonna have to throw the ball because nothing else is working, and this is working, and it was working against Penn State as well.